There are moments in life when the Qur'an is not just a book on a shelf. It's not even just a memory in your mind. It becomes your final companion. The one truth that refuses to leave you, even when everything else fades. Sometimes, those words of Allah are all that remain when faith is lost, when hope is shattered, when your life slips away tonight. I want to take you on a journey from the story of a man who once held the Qur'an in his heart but let it go, to a little girl whose body is broken but whose soul clings to the Qur'an with every breath. From the streets of Medina, in the time of Umar ibn al-Khattab, to the hospital wards of war-torn Gaza, we will see how the Qur'an lives inside people, sometimes as a warning, sometimes as a miracle. And always as the lifeline of the believer. There was once a man named Sak, a reciter of the Qur'an, a hafid, a warrior who carried the words of Allah into the battlefield. He was known for his mastery in recitation, his dedication to teaching the Qur'an, and his courage in battle against the Roman armies. To those around him, he seemed like a man of unshakable faith. But one day, Sak's heart was tested in a way he never expected. He fell in love with a woman who was not a Muslim. Her condition for marrying him was that he leave Islam, and he did think about that. A man who memorized the Qur'an, who prayed, who fought in the path of Allah, turned his back on it all for the love of a human being. He abandoned the Qur'an, abandoned his faith, abandoned the very thing that once defined him years later. Sak lay on his deathbed in Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul. His companions, perhaps in one last attempt to save his soul, came to him and said, "Do you remember anything from the Qur'an?" He looked at them, and with a voice heavy with regret, said, "I forgot the entire Qur'an except for one ayah. It may be that those who disbelieve will wish that they were believers." That single verse had been burned into his heart, not as a comfort, but as a judgment. It was Allah's final reminder to him, the only piece of the Qur'an his soul refused to let go of. The words were no longer a blessing to him, but a haunting truth that followed him into death. From that tragedy, let us move to another moment, not of loss of faith, but of its deep presence. We all know the story of Umar ibn al-Khattab when the Prophet Muhammad passed away. Umar was in the masjid, and when the news came, he could not bear it. He stood and declared that anyone who said Muhammad had died was a liar. The Prophet had only gone away like Musa had gone to speak to Allah and would return. Ma was a man whose life revolved entirely around Allah said, and the Messenger said. His sincerity was so pure that often, revelation would come confirming his opinions, not because of his will, but because his heart was aligned with divine truth. And yet, in that moment, even he could not accept the reality. It was Abu Bakr who calmed the chaos. He stood and recited the verse, "Muhammad is but a messenger. Messengers have passed away before him. If he dies or is killed, will you turn back on your heels?" When Umar heard those words, it was as if he had never heard them before. The verse pierced through his grief, etched into his heart, not out of loss of faith, but as a deeper confirmation of it. Yesterday, I visited a 12-year-old girl from Gaza. Her legs no longer work. Her spinal cord is riddled with bullets. She has lost one arm, and the other barely functions. Lying in her bed, she still smiled at me with a light that could put the sun to shame. She spoke like an elder in Iman. Alhamdulillah. We thank Allah for everything. The nurse tried to cheer her up by playing Palestinian songs. I joked with her, "If you want, I can sing instead." She laughed and said, "No, I don't want songs. I want you to recite Qur'an to me." I recited for her. Then I asked her to recite back to me. Children usually choose short surahs from Jews. Umar, something light, something easy. But, she began. Indeed, Pharaoh exalted himself in the land and made its people into factions, oppressing a sector among them, slaughtering their sons and letting their women live. Indeed, he was of the corrupters, and we wished to favor those who were oppressed in the land, and make them leaders and inheritors. This was not random. She was living the very ayah she recited. Her brothers had been slaughtered, her family torn apart. She saw in the Qur'an her own life story. That verse wasn't just in her mind, it was carved into her soul in Gaza. The Qur'an isn't just memorized in the mind. It is memorized in the wounds, in the bones, in the beating hearts of the oppressed. Even if the mushaf is taken away, even if memory fades, the Qur'an remains in the way they see the world, in the way they speak, in the way they endure. When I asked this girl if she wanted anything, she said, "Bring me a mushaf. I want to go back to my memorization." She had been memorizing before the bombing, but forgot much after the attack. Still, she wanted to start again. This is the difference between those who know the Qur'an and those who live it. This morning, I learnt of Dr. Ala, a pediatric doctor in Gaza with 10 children. She went to the hospital to serve others, knowing every day could be her last. That day, 7 of her children were brought to the hospital dead. Then she learned 2 more had been killed. 9 of her 10 children were gone. Only 1 son remained alive, fighting for his life, his name, Adam. This is not just grief. This is the trial of a lifetime, the kind of pain that could crush a mountain. Yet, these are the people who still hold the Qur'an close, still say, Alhamdulillah, still see their suffering through the lens of divine words. The Qur'an told us of pharaohs before, so we would recognize the pharaohs of today. It told us of oppressed nations before, so we would know how to stand with the oppressed. Now this book is not a relic. It is not a symbol. It is alive, guiding, healing, and fortifying the hearts that carry it. If the pain you feel today cuts deep, carve the Qur'an into that wound. Let every pang remind you of an ayah. Let every tear call back a story of a prophet who endured. The Qur'an will never abandon you, but you must open your heart to let it live inside you. My dear brothers and sisters, we are the people of the Qur'an, or we are nothing. If the Qur'an is not etched in our lives, it will fade from our lips. Let us live by it, fight for it, comfort others with it, and never let it go. Share this message, so others remember the people of the Qur'an in Gaza, in every land of oppression. Keep their stories alive. And if you want to journey deeper into the heart of the Qur'an, into the verses that speak to our pain, our hope, and our future, subscribe to Islamic Echoes, because here, we don't just talk about the Qur'an, we let it speak. And when it speaks, the world listens.